Hey, welcome guys. Bob here, bobsplumbingvideos.com. Listen, in 2015, I put together a 5-module video series called the No-Brainer Home Plumbing Inspection Checklist. Really catchy name. Fact of the matter is it didn't do well. After all, guys, plumbing maintenance is not a glamorous subject, but nevertheless, there's a lot of valuable information in this 5-video module series. This particular module is about the water and drain system in a typical residential home. It's kind of lengthy. I drone a little bit, so for all you trolls who don't like the way I speak, I suggest you skip this one. To all the rest of you who want to learn about the water and drainage system in your home, I suggest you watch it from beginning to end. And if I'm getting a little too drony, you can always fast forward to the part you want to see. Folks, check it out. Leave your comments down below because there are actually 3 other modules. I already have the water heater maintenance module up live on YouTube. This is going to be the water and drain module, and there are 3 other modules that I haven't released yet. Check it out. Give me your feedback. I look forward to hearing from you. Hey, welcome folks. Bob here from bobsplumbingvideos.com. On this channel, I provide free plumbing tutorials for people who don't want to call a plumber. No scientific data, no fancy chemical breakdown of the materials I use in these videos, just common sense solutions to everyday plumbing problems. After all, folks, you shouldn't have to take out a mortgage to be able to afford a plumber. If you're new to the channel, I highly recommend you subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit that bell notification so you'll be notified of when I post a new video. Now, let's get into this video. Oops, I almost forgot. Get lost. Welcome, folks, to the No-Brainer Home Plumbing Inspection Checklist, a simple strategy to identify and avoid a plumbing emergency. The water and drain system. Folks, this module is going to be a little longer than the other modules, but bear with me. I have some screencasts, I have some videos, and we'll try to get through this as painlessly as possible. Behind the walls of every home lies a series of water waste and vent pipes. They're out of sight and mind and are generally taken for granted as we go about our everyday lives. For the most part, what lies behind the walls works flawlessly, but what about all the exposed plumbing we can see? Let me walk you through exactly what I look for when performing this annual inspection for my own plumbing clients. These tips may very well help you locate small problems, thus eliminating a potential plumbing emergency. On the following page are the areas of concern I'm looking for. It makes no difference where you start this inspection. The important thing is finding the time and getting it done. Today we're going to cover the main water supply valve, and I sure hope most of you know where yours is located in case of an emergency. Pressure reducing valves, which are required equipment if you have excessive incoming water pressures. We don't have too many of them here on the East Coast, but on the West Coast and other parts of the country, they are a required item. BackFlow Preventors, another item that is required in certain situations, and we'll cover that. Pipe supports, meaning how your pipe is supported, how it's hung from the ceiling, how it's connected to the wall. Cleanouts, meaning access to your sewer when it needs to be cleaned out. You'll want to find out sooner than later that those cleanouts come off in a time of need. And finally, sump pumps. For those of you who have the privilege of groundwater coming into your homes, you know what sump pumps are all about, and we'll go over some tips I hope to share with you in the following slides. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. The main water supply valve. Do you know where yours is located? It could be in a basement, underground, located in a pit, or even located in a curb box outside of your home. Regardless of where it's located, it should be tagged and documented so everyone in the family knows exactly where it is should an emergency take place. Where to look? You can look at the front-facing wall of the building, either at ground level or possibly in a basement. You can look below ground, possibly in a pit located with the water meter or the sewer cleanout covers. Look outside of your home for a recessed curb box. I know in parts of the country they are located outside. You can look by a water meter. There are many possibilities here, folks. Find it, tag it, document it so everyone knows where it is. Why you should care? Because individual point of use valves found under most plumbing fixtures often do not shut 100%. As a matter of fact, folks, 99% of them don't hold. It's just the way it is. They're just under there. They've just been there for years and years and years. Nobody's ever bothered to try them out. And when the day comes that you want them to work, they never work. It's much easier to shut the main water supply in an emergency, thereby keeping massive water damage to a minimum. Let's check it out in our first technical timeout. All right, folks, this is real plumbing. As you can see, we have a copper water main coming in the front wall of this building. It's about 3 feet above the basement floor here. And as you can see, we have the gate valve, which is the first valve off the line, and that's a round handle gate valve. And as I said, with round handles, you close to the right, open to the left. Or if you can't remember that, it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And that continues on here into the meter set. And we have our water meter here. And actually at the bottom of the water meter, you're going to see there is a ball valve here. The handle's facing the back. And here's another ball valve here. These are quarter turn to the right or left, depending upon which way this meter set is put in. And in this case, they came out of the meter set. The meter set comes up, continues on. You're going to see there's a hose bib. And this continues on up and distributes throughout the house. And in this case here, they actually put another gate valve in here. I don't know why they did that, but they did. It's not a problem. But this is surely an example of a water main coming in. And as this is the case that we're looking at here, I don't see any tags. But that's because, I'm familiar with this building and I'm pretty much the only one here who would ever have access to this room. So I know that's the water meter, but you're going to want to tag your valves. You can tag them, identify them, and that's the main water shutoff. In a pinch, if there's a problem, if I have water leaking anywhere within this building and I can't be bothered going chasing after individual shutoff valves, this is the go-to valve that I'm going to shut, and then I will assess the situation. So there you go. This is one situation where the water main is coming in. You can see it coming in the wall there. And it's not always the case. Sometimes it comes in below grade. Sometimes it comes in through the floor and up. But in this case, this is pretty much a typical situation that you would see in a building such as we're looking at. Okay, folks, here we are, just another example of a main water supply coming in. And in this case, we're in a garage. And this water main is actually coming up out of the pit. And you see the water meter there. And let me just take a shot down the pit. And as you can see, we go down, comes up out of the pit. And what do we see in there alongside the water main? You can actually see the two covers, the cleanout covers for this house sewer system. So on the right there, you're going to see the cleanout that goes out toward the street. In this case, this home is equipped with a septic tank. And on the left is the one which would go toward the house, the building house drain. So just another example of, where you might find a water main coming in. Again, this pit is below grade. It's about 12 inches below grade. Comes up out of the pit. And as we come up here, you're going to see this pipe here that we're going to be looking at in a second is the fresh air pipe to the sewer system. And that goes out the front wall there. Goes out the front wall. And actually here you can see it coming up out of the ground just ahead of the house cleanout cap. And I wanted to bring to your attention here, in this case here, these valves are actually tagged. Now this is the meter set. The meter set has these quarter turn ball valves on them. And in this case here, we have some tags noting, what these valves are for, which is pretty handy because if there's an emergency happening and the homeowner doesn't know what to do, they can certainly come over here and take a look at these tags. So we got a valve on the inlet to the meter set. We also have a valve on the outlet to the meter set, and they are clearly tagged what they are, what their function is. And let me just scoot in behind here because we couldn't see this behind the fresh air inlet, but the first valve on the main here, and actually they took the handle off here, but this is a gate valve. This is the original gate valve that was installed on the water main, and the handle was taken off. I don't know what the reason may have been, but I can certainly tell you it's much easier to do a shut off with these quarter turn ball valves. Either be a quarter turn to the right or a quarter turn to the left. And there you have it. As we come up here, there is the outlet to the meter set with another quarter turn ball valve. And actually, we have a ball valve that's servicing the garden hose. So this is just another example of where you guys might be looking or trying to locate your water main. They're in all areas. They're in basements. They're at ground level. They're below grade. They're outside. So just some more food for thought in case you're trying to figure out where your water main is. And a nice touch would be to have your valves tagged. I highly recommend it because when that emergency happens, you want to know exactly what to shut. By knowing exactly where to shut your main water supply off in a time of need will save you from the expense, heartache, and inconvenience of massive water damage. Let's review. We looked at the possible locations of the main water shutoff valve. If it's a round-handled gate-style valve, I suggest that you turn it off to the right. Everything always turns off to the right. And if you have a problem remembering that, I would suggest you remember this: righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Always go clockwise for a round-handled valve. Now, if you have a lever style or a ball type valve, the off position is generally a quarter turn to the right or left, depending upon the valve orientation. Pressure reducing valves, also known as P.R.Vs. Pressure reducing valves are designed to reduce excessive incoming water pressures to safe working levels. In New York City, incoming pressures can range anywhere from 40 psi to 80 psi. But in California and other parts of the country, the incoming water pressures are in excess of 100 psi, which can cause damage to the entire plumbing system. Why you should care? Well, if you're in an area of the country that requires or your pressure reducing valve is not functioning properly, the long-term effects on your entire water distribution system will eventually cause damage, which will be costly to repair. Where to look? If your main water supply valve is equipped with a pressure reducing valve, it should be directly ahead of your main shutoff valve. Let's check it out in this technical timeout. Okay, pressure reducing valves. I'm located in the New York City area, and our incoming water pressures here run somewhere between 40 psi and 80 psi. So as a result, we're not required to have PRVs put on our incoming water services. But if you're in California or other parts of the country where you have pressures in excess of 100 psi, you're going to be required to have them put on, and you can check with your local building department. Now, if you wanted to test your water pressure, you most certainly can. You can get a pressure gauge and connect it to a hose bib where you connect your garden hose to and take a pressure reading. And just a little tip here, folks, if you take pressure readings during different parts of the day, meaning the morning, afternoon, at night, they're going to vary. They're going to be down in the morning. They'll probably be somewhere in the middle in the afternoon. And at night, they're going to be way up because people are sleeping. Nobody's using the water. But basically, you just have to be sure that if you do have high water pressures, you have this P.R.V. installed on your incoming water service. Now, just ahead of Mr. Smiley Face here, we have the main water shutoff valve location. Then you would go into the P.R.V. And after the P.R.V., you most likely will find your water meter, and then it's on to Happy Plumbing from there. As you can see, there is a pressure adjusting screw on top of this valve, but I suggest you don't monkey around with that. You call a professional in to have the pressure adjusted. Again, the long-term effects of excessive water pressure will damage your entire plumbing system. So if you're located in an area of the country with excessive incoming water pressure, you must have a P.R.V. installed, and you must use a licensed professional to do it. So there it is, folks. That's pretty much my take on pressure reducing valves. As I said, we don't find them here in the New York City area, but if you are in an area of the country where you have very high incoming water pressures, you're going to need one of these on your incoming water service. Pressure reducing valves are an essential part of any plumbing system that is subject to excessive incoming water pressures. I recommend having a professional test your P.R.V. at least once annually. Let's review. We looked at the function of the pressure reducing valve. We looked at the possible location. And I recommend having your P.R.V. inspected at least once annually by a licensed plumber. Backflow preventors. Backflow prevention is a mandatory requirement across many applications in the plumbing trades. In the residential setting, they can be found on water supply piping to steam boilers, hot water boilers, and outside hose bibs. Why you should care. The sole purpose of a backflow preventer is to prevent contaminated water from backing into our potable water supply. Where to look? You can look for them on cold water supply feeds to steam boilers, cold water supply feeds to hot water boilers, outside hose bibs. You should have them on an outside hose bib because Lord knows that we let the garden hose like sit in puddles of dirty contaminated water, and all that can be sucked back into the drinking water, folks. Anywhere a cold water supply inlet enters below the flood level rim of a plumbing fixture, check with your local building codes. Let's check it out in this video. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a typical Watts 9D backflow preventer installed on a cold water supply line to a hot water boiler. Very typical here. We put them on supply lines to hot water boilers, steam boilers, or anywhere there is a fixture that has the supply inlet, below the overflow level of the fixture, required here in New York City. And very simply, if you look at the flow there on the cold water inlet, that's the direction the flow's coming in. Out of frame there above where the cold water inlet is noted is a shutoff valve, feeds the backflow preventer, then the backflow preventer continues on into the pressure reducing valve and then on into the heating system. Now the vent is the dump port. And what will happen is if there is a momentary drop in pressure on the inlet side, that'll create a vacuum pulling water out of the boiler. And the idea of a backflow preventer is to dump that water out rather than siphon it back into the drinking water. So you want to make sure these things are in good operational order. As a rule, if you see them piddle or release a little water, every once in a while, they're doing their job. But if you notice a continuous dumping of water from the vent port, that's going to tell you that that valve is in need of some service or possibly some replacement. So that's it. With backflow preventers, they are required equipment in certain situations, and if you have them, it'll be good for you to know that if you do see water constantly dripping out of it, it's time to call a professional in. And I also would advise you to have these put in by a professional only. These are not items that you should be doing yourself. And this is just another item that I look at when I perform my home plumbing inspection. All right, so I also wanted to show you a garden hose vacuum breaker. They're called vacuum breakers. They're similar to backflow preventers. They do the same job, but they're actually not backflow preventers. They call them vacuum breakers. Very inexpensive. You can pick them up at any plumbing supply home center, and simply you see the inlet there and the outlet. So the inlet would get screwed onto your existing hose bib, and you can do that hand tight because there is a washer inside of it. And then you could just snug up on that set screw, and then you can screw your garden hose on the outlet end there. You see the male threads, and then you continue to use your hose as usual. Now you see where the dump ports are. Now those dump ports, if you could actually look under there, there are a series of holes all the way around the diameter of that vacuum breaker. And basically what that does is, if you have your garden hose sitting in some schmutzy water, so to speak, and for some reason you would leave the hose on and walk away, and there was a sudden drop in pressure on the inlet side, that garden hose would actually suck the dirty water and bring it back into the potable water system. But because the dump ports are there, what would happen is the water would actually come out of the dump ports. And that's basically it. There are a lot of municipalities that actually require these. They're mandatory equipment that you have to check with your local building department. But I just wanted to make you aware of them. They exist. They're out there. I see them on some garden hoses. I don't see them on all garden hoses, although I think they should be included on all garden hoses. And there you go, folks. Backflow preventers and garden hose vacuum breakers. Backflow preventers have an inlet an outlet, and a dump port. If conditions warrant, water will leak from the dump port until the danger of a backflow has ceased. When the danger has passed, the water will stop flowing. If a backflow preventer leaks continually, it's an indication of repair and/or replacement. Let's review. It's extremely important for backflow preventers to function properly. They protect your family and the surrounding community from cross-contamination of the potable water supply. Backflow preventers should be inspected at least once annually by a licensed professional. Pipe supports. An often overlooked item that I don't find too many faults with are pipe supports. Depending upon its function, a suspended pipe should be perfectly level or slightly pitched. But in either case, there should be no signs of sagging. Different diameter pipes require supports at different intervals. If your pipes are sagging, give them a little extra support. They'll absolutely appreciate you for it. Why you should care. For those of you who live in the eastern part of the country and own steam heating systems, a sagging steam main can trap pockets of water, causing loud banging and eventually causing the pipe to corrode. By providing extra supports at the recommended intervals, you'll allow the water to return to its source, thereby eliminating long-term damage to your pipes. In addition to your steam heating pipes, all drain lines are required to be pitched, allowing water to properly drain away. Where to look? By simply giving a visual inspection of all exposed and hanging pipes, you'll be able to identify where support is needed. Below, I provided you with a source that you can use when hanging pipe should you decide to do it yourself. As always, you should check with your local buildings department to comply with the local requirements. Let's check it out in this technical timeout. Okay, pipe supports. I have a little screenshot here of a typical boiler room. And as you can see, I have pointed out with my fancy arrows here some areas where the pipe is supported. And I probably missed some areas that I couldn't see clearly. But overall, I would say this is not a bad looking job, but I would probably have some more supports in certain areas of this photo. It's very important to have the pipes secured correctly because, water flows through them, water moves. There is this thing called thrust, and, water pipes can shake and they can move around. And if they're not properly supported, at some point I've seen water lines or waste lines actually fall down if they weren't supported properly. So, the moral to this story pretty much is you have to support your piping. And I look for this when I'm doing my inspection. Now, there are specific rules when it comes to supporting pipe in terms of what the diameter of the pipe is, what the material of the pipe is, and at what intervals the hanger should be installed. And pretty much, if I'm doing a job and I'm having an inspection, the inspector is looking for hangers and he's looking to see if there are the proper number of supports. And if there aren't, he'll fail the inspection, plain and simply. So if it says I need X amount of supports within a certain area and I'm missing one, he's going to fail me. So pretty much, folks, this is all about making sure that your pipes are properly hung, properly strapped to the wall, and you don't have any loose ends happening, and your plumbing will thank you for it. And basically that's it on pipe support. I believe I provided you a link in the presentation where you could go find out a little bit more about what exactly the measurements would be in between supports for the different diameters and materials of pipes. And that's it. Just be sure your pipe is properly supported because your plumbing will thank you for it. Improperly supported pipe causes extra strain on joints that can lead to breakage. A properly supported pipe will limit the effects of thrust. This will extend the piping's longevity and limit noises and vibrations. Folks, thrust is simply the force of the water traveling through the pipe. Vertical thrust, coming down from 2 or 3 floors is awful strong, and you want to make sure these pipes are secure. Every pipe will expand and contract with temperature fluctuations. Using the right hangers and supports to accommodate these changes will protect the pipe from damage. Let's review. By simply doing a visual check, You'll identify sagging pipes in need of attention. If it's a drain pipe or a steam heating pipe, the water should flow in the recommended direction. Water and gas lines, in my opinion, should be perfectly level. Cleanouts. When talking about cleanouts, I'm referring to access points in the main sewer where a mechanical snake can be introduced for the sole purposes of cleaning. Why you should care. You don't want to find out when your sewer is backing up that you either can't find or can't remove a cleanout cover when the sewage is backing into your home. Folks, it's not a pretty sight. I've been in basements when the water was coming out of the toilet bowl at the basement level. We couldn't get the caps off in time, and need I tell you what the result was? Nasty, nasty. Where to look. This may vary in different parts of the country. It could be in a basement or at street level located in a pit below grade. It could be located in your garden outside of your home. It could also be located in a curb box outside of your home. Let's take a look in this video. Now what you're looking at here are cleanouts. This is the building house trap. If you could actually see down in there, it's a U-turn below ground. The right side there is the access to the street cleaning, in case you had to clean the street sewer going out to the street. The left side is access to the house side, the building house drain. So these go lead fiddle covers. These are lead fiddle covers. They replace the original brass screw covers that were on there. You simply hit them on either side of those hex and they pop off. And if you have to get them on in a hurry, you just slap them on and hit them with a hammer, and they go on very easily. Now what I'll do is we'll go in the back of the building here. Now in New York, it's required to have a clean out every 50 feet, but a lot of buildings are very shallow. You don't get many buildings that are 50 feet long from front to back. But what you will find are clean out accesses to the floor drains and the roof drains. So there is one in the back of this building, and I'll show you that. And what I wanted to point out here is that you will also find in New York here, water mains will be coming in. I've seen there are situations where the water mains, instead of coming out of the wall, will come out here, and you'll have the valve located in the pit, and they will even manage, believe it or not, to put the meter in here. I've seen situations where the sewer covers will below the water meter, but they will come in below grade. It all depends on the building. It all depends on the block you're on and how they ran the utilities at the time. So let's shoot to the back of the building here, and I'll show you that other clean out that is accessing the rear drain and the roof drains. All right, and here we are at the rear of the building. Here is another clean out. We're about 35 to 40 feet away from the main house trap we were just looking at. So to the right here is toward the front of the building, and to the left is the rear of the building, and this clean out services the rear yard drains and the roof drains of this building. So there was a brass cover on here at one time. I'd taken it off, and I put this new lead fiddle plug on here, which is very easy to get off, very easy to get on. Trust me, guys, you don't want to find that in a time of need that you can't get this cover off, especially if you got sewage backing up. So my word of caution, if you have a plug that won't come off, I highly suggest you calling your plumber in and either replace it with a new brass cover, keep it well lubricated so it does come off, or, my choice here are the good old lead fiddle plugs. They work all the time. And yeah, that's my take on cleanouts. Okay, so here you have some possible locations of cleanouts. Now, in New York City, this is a pretty typical shot of what we see on a daily basis. We have our house traps, which are located below grade, usually in a pit. It's covered with a wooden cover or a metal cover. And below, we'll have two cleanouts, generally as a rule. I mean, in the old days, there actually used to be situations where there was only one cleanout. But we have two cleanouts, one for the street side, which is on the right, one for the house side, which is on the left. The flow is coming from the building, going through the house trap and out to the house sewer. Generally, those covers don't come off, so we end up chopping them off, and we will replace them with new brass covers or lead fiddle covers. But basically, they're covers that we can get off in a hurry should that building house drain or building sewer stop up. Now you'll see we have a fresh air inlet to the plumbing system, which goes through the foundation wall. And as a rule, we lubricate these covers and make sure they're accessible, because the last thing you want is to have a problem with the sewer, either on the house side or the street side, and then call a sewer cleaning company and the covers can't come off. Because if they have to chop them off while that pipe is stopped up, you're going to have one mess down in your basement. Trust me, folks. Now, on the other side, if you're out in the West Coast or maybe Midwest or even parts of Long Island, I believe you may have a clean out outside. I've seen clean outs outside the building line in the lawn. I've seen clean outs out by the curb. In New York, we're required to have clean outs about every 50 feet, but pretty much the buildings that I work in, they're 50 feet or less. So generally, I'm going to find the clean outs on the house sewer in the front. Maybe on occasion, I'll find one in the back. We also have cleanouts on the leader lines, that is the roof drains coming down. So they also have cleanouts on them located in the rear of the building, either on the right or the left side. But I just wanted to give you this screenshot of some possibilities. And I would tell you that you should locate your cleanouts. And if they haven't been out, get a pro in to take them out, put some new covers in, lubricate them so you know that when you need to get them off, they'll come off. And that's about it for some possible locations of your cleanout covers. If you know where your cleanouts are located, try removing them. If they don't move or refuse to come off, call in a pro to install new ones. Make sure they lubricate them well with waterproof silicone grease to ensure they'll come off when you need them to. You don't want to find out in your time of need that the cleanouts are frozen in place. Let's review. We talked about the importance of locating your cleanouts and making sure they're fully functional. Like the main water supply shutoff valve to your home, they should be documented so the entire family is aware should and when an emergency takes place. Sump pumps. Sump pumps are used in many residential applications to remove or divert unwanted groundwater. The most popular use of sump pumps are in the installation of a French drainage system. Now, a French drainage system is simply a perforated 3-inch or 4-inch plastic pipe that is buried below grade, backfilled with drainage stone, and then is piped to a sump pit where the sump pump can divert the water away from your home. While you should care, if you have a French drainage system in your home to remove excess groundwater, you'll want to periodically test the sump pump by introducing water into the sump pit and ensure the pump is working. You don't want to discover the pump gave up the ghost when the pit starts to suddenly fill with water. I'm going to give you a tip here, folks. I keep a brand new sump pump piped and ready to go in the event of a pump failure. To date, I'm actually working on my third pump. I got my third pump on deck, ready to go. God forbid my existing pump gives up the ghost in a time of need. Where to look? You'll find them below grade, covered or uncovered in one or more of the following. You'll see them in basements. You'll see them in garages. And as is my case, it's located under my stairwell. I have a high ranch, that is, I'm on slab. I have a second floor and then I'm on slab, and underneath the stairwell, I have actually a 5-gallon bucket sunk into the ground where the sump pump is located. I have French drainage pipe coming in from the left and right side. And boy, let me tell you, since it was installed, I have been one dry puppy. Been very happy with my sump pump. But I test it. I make sure it's working periodically. Let's check it out in this technical timeout. So here we go, folks. This is a typical sump pump installation. This is looks like a commercially available sump pit. It's a rather large one. Actually, there's 2 pumps in here. They got the old one up on the deck and they have a new one there on the left side, but it looks like they have space for another pump, and they have that. Actually, the pumps are propped up on bricks, which is a great idea because you don't want the sediment to build up and start sucking up sediment. But basically, you'll see that perforated drain pipe coming in the pit there. And I see a couple of more areas. There are 2 more areas where I see that perforated pipe that are dumping into the pit. And basically what happens is when the water, table gets high, or when it's raining, or whatever the situation may be, that water starts pouring into this pit, that pit fills up, gets to a certain level, the pump comes on and diverts that water out. Now, the important thing here is to size your pump correctly, meaning, you want to get the right pump that can pump up high enough and pump up, a distance that you need to get the water away. In my own home, we utilized a 5-gallon container, a regular 5-gallon bucket, drilled it full of holes, set that in the drainage stone, and I got my pump set down inside of there, and it works like a charm. I'm currently working on my third pump. I always have a new pump on deck ready to go because you can never tell when these things are going to fail. And I don't want to be in a situation where my pit is filling up and I don't have a pump ready to go. So I just go out and buy a new one and have it sitting there ready to go. And that's pretty much it, folks. If you have a situation where you need a sump pump, I recommend having a spare on hand because you don't want to be in a situation where perhaps, you get that one horrendous storm and all of a sudden your pump doesn't work. So there you go, a typical sump pump installation. So there you have it, folks. This is the actual sump pump in my own house. And as you can see, they used a 5-gallon bucket. And I got to tell you, it's not fancy. They drilled holes in it. The pump sits down there inside of the bucket. And when that bucket starts to fill up, the pump works like a charm. Now, unlike the one we saw in the illustration, this is a smaller vessel to hold the pump in, but regardless, it works like a charm. And back in the day, when this was put in, we used to get water coming in the house continually. And ever since the day that this was put in, I haven't had a drop of water in my house. So, if you have a sump pump, you're going to want to make sure every once in a while, occasionally, you're going to throw some water down there, make sure the pump comes on. And basically, that's it, folks. So I just wanted to give you this little tidbit. And again, this is the sump pump in my very own home, and it's underneath the staircase. And I got drain pipe coming in from both the right and the left sides. And when it rains heavily, or even sometimes when my sprinklers are on, actually the pump will come on because the pit starts to fill up. So there you go, folks. If you have a sump pump, you want to make sure you occasionally test it to make sure it comes on when it's supposed to, because you don't want to be in a position that the pit is filling up and the pump is not pumping. Know where your pump is located and fill the sump pit with water to observe the pump operate. I recommend doing this at least once quarterly. Make sure your pump is sized for the right application. You can generally find this information on the outside of the packaging of the sump pump. Folks, you're going to want to make sure you get the right pump for the right job. We don't want to be purchasing a little pump that can pump the water off your pool cover and expect it to take out hundreds of gallons an hour. If you need help with that, you can always contact me for that. Let's review. Make sure the sump pit is properly covered and free of any obstructions. Make sure your pump is sized for the proper application. And test the operation of your pump quarterly to ensure it's in good working condition. So there you go, guys, the water and drain module. What did you think? Leave your comments down below, both good and bad. Now, the water heater maintenance module is already live here on YouTube. I will leave a link to that video in the cards up above here. Also, don't forget to check out one of these two videos that are going to pop up here to my right. One of them I chose for you, and one of them YouTube thought you might like to see. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everybody for stopping by as usual. I look forward to seeing you guys again in my next video. Stay well, and as always, happy plumbing.